Welcome to a world of terror, where the punishment for crime was nothing short of barbaric. Medieval executions ranged from breast ripper to knee splitter. These brutal methods were meant to deter criminals, but were not always successful. In fact, people still committed crimes and suffered dire consequences. This is Ancient Tone. Kindly subscribe. But before you continue any further, be warned that they are very graphic and disturbing. The Judas Cradle. This Italian design was so cruel that it was also called the Judas Chair. A prisoner would be lowered over the pyramid-shaped seat using ropes, and the point of the pyramid would be put into the anus or vagina. The orifice would be stretched and put under a lot of pressure, which would cause lasting damage. In many cases, the person died from tears in the muscle tissue that became infected over time. Weights were added to make the impact stronger, which often led to death by impalement. The same thing happened with something called the Spanish donkey, or wooden horse. The victims had to sit on the triangular horse and put all of their weight on their crotch, which sat on the angle's point. Saw torture. This was a way to kill someone by cutting them in half either lengthwise or crosswise through the middle of their body mass. This was done by either cutting the person in half across the body or along the length of the body. Hair of anguish. During the Middle Ages, this horrible device was used to punish women who were accused of causing a miscarriage. It was also used to punish people who lied, said bad things about God, or were gay. The device was put into one of the prisoner's orifices, the vagina for women, the anus for gays, and the mouth for liars and blasphemers, which is why it's also called the choke pear. The device had 4 metal leaves that slowly moved apart as the top screw was turned by the torturer. The torturer could use it to tear the skin or mutilate the victim by making it as big as possible. It didn't kill people very often, but it was often used after other kinds of torture. Breaking wheel. This torture tool, which was also called the Catherine wheel, was used to kill and torture prisoners who were to be put to death in public. Usually it looked like a big wagon wheel with spokes that went in all directions. Criminals were tied to the wheel and had their arms and legs beaten with a stick or iron cudgel. Because there were holes in the wheel, the arms could give way and break. Worryingly, the time a person could live after being broken could be long. In some cases, victims lived for several days before dying from their injuries. Iron chair. During the Middle Ages, this torture tool was used a lot. The victim would sit on the chair, which had hundreds of sharp spikes, and then iron restraints would be slowly tightened, driving the spikes deep into the skin. This could keep happening for hours or even days. Blood loss was kept to a minimum because the spikes did not go through critical organs. This was true at least until the person was taken out of the chair. Death was often the result. The iron chair was often used as a form of psychological torture. When victims were forced to watch other prisoners being beaten with the chair, they would often confess. Head crusher. It's pretty clear what it means. The head is slowly crushed by the device, which is basically a press for the head. Even if the torturer stopped before the person died, the muscles and structure of the face would be damaged for good. Rat torture. People have also used rats to abuse people. A popular way to escape was to force a hungry rat through a victim's body, usually the intestines. There were many different ways to do this. For it to work, prisoners had to be fully held down and tied to the ground or something else flat. Then, a rat was put on the stomach and covered with a metal container that was slowly heated. The rat started looking for a way out, which meant it had to go through the body of the victim. It normally took a few hours to dig through the body, which led to a painful and horrible death. Coffin torture. During the Middle Ages, this was one of the worst ways to be tortured. The suspects were put in a caged coffin, which stopped them from moving at all. The length of time depended on the crime. For example, slander was a crime that could lead to death. People who were angry would often mock and hurt the victims by putting them on show for everyone to see. Breast ripper. This one is the worst, but that doesn't mean the others aren't bad too. It was mostly used on women who were suspected of adultery, self-abortion, heresy, blasphemy, or being witches. It was also called the iron spider. It was also used to question people. The torture device, which was often heated, had 4 claws that were used to slowly and painfully rip the breasts off. The tool would be fastened to one of the woman's breasts. Her children sometimes got blood on them. If the woman didn't die, she would be scarred for the rest of her life. Knee splitter. This device was popular during the Inquisition. It was made of 2 sharp wood blocks that were put in front of and behind the knee. The blocks, which were held together by 2 big screws, could be turned and brought close to each other, breaking the knee underneath. With this method, the knees would be useless. The spikes on the blocks ranged from 3 to 20, and the number often depended on the crime and the prisoner's standing. We hope you liked this video. Subscribe to the channel if you're a history addict, and please let us know what other people or time periods we should talk about in this series.